Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Before we begin, I do apologize for the strange camera angle. I also apologize for the acoustics of this room. For some of you guys out there that don't like me recording in this room for that reason, I am just rushing this video into production because I want to comment on some of the latest developments on the Nintendo PlayStation prototype auction at present time that's just being sold through Heritage Auctions. Now, before we begin, I always have to state this. Number one, I am not sponsored by anybody. All these videos that I produce are of my own content, and they are as unbiased as I can make them. It is true, I do a lot of business in the trade through Heritage Auctions, whether it's with me directly or I use an alias or an associate who handles my matters with Heritage Auctions through some of the higher end items that I bid on, mainly in the coin and currency realm through their particular auction site. That said, I have a lot of respect for Heritage Auctions. So I don't want to give anybody the idea that there's anything wrong or amiss with this auction. What is really perplexing me is the attitude and the fact that the high bidder on this particular item at present time has come forward and admitted that he is the high bidder, which completely blows me away. But before we get ahead of ourselves with all that commentary and feedback, we got to go back to the beginning, and I got to tell you why I am now closely monitoring this auction even more than I was before all these events occurred. So let's go back to Thursday, February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, for all you romantics out there like me. On Thursday, February 13th, I woke up, I looked at this particular auction, and I noticed the bidding was at roughly $31,000. According to the email I got from Heritage, that pretty much tells me my watched lots and what certain items are going for at the time that email is generated. So I looked at the auction, I really didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, and I said, oh, okay, bidding just opened for this particular item. Of course it's gonna start low. A lot of people aren't gonna put their high bids in yet because the auction doesn't really end until the end of the first week of March. So there's roughly 21 days left in this auction at present time from when I'm shooting this particular video. Now, ironically, I said to myself, I'll watch it every day going forward unless if I noticed any jumps in the bidding or bidding activity. Well, I wake up on Friday, February 14th, which was Valentine's Day, and I get up usually very early in the morning. And I noticed that Heritage sent me an email, and I'm going to read part of this email to you guys, that they sent at February 14th at 4:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which makes sense because I'm located in Pennsylvania. The email is entitled, Sean, changes to items you're interested in. I read the email, and it says, Dear Sean, please be aware that changes have been made on the following lots that you have bid on or are tracking. The item descriptions below highlight the changes made. And in this particular email, it shows a link to the Nintendo PlayStation Super NES CD-ROM prototype system. So I click on the link, and it takes me to Heritage's website. And ironically, the only change that I can see that they made to the description is, if you guys want to view the auction yourself, you can. It just shows a video snippet of the history of this particular item, how it came to be, and how it led to the creation of the original Sony PlayStation system that launched in the United States back in 1995. Well, it's a pretty good history piece, and it does add a little bit more flair to the auction in question. So I didn't think much of it. I didn't even look at the bid amount at that particular time, which really I should have. So I started my day, and roughly 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, I went back and I looked at the auction, and I noticed there's some heavy bidding activity on this particular item. This item's starting to shoot up now to roughly $350,000. Well, this really piqued my interest because those of you that have done business with Heritage or other high-end auction sites, you know that they charge a buyer's premium. So at $350,000 with a 20% buyer's premium, that means even if this auction ended right now, this particular item would sell for $420,000. Now, for some of you, that probably seems like a low number for this particular item. For others of you, I'm sure that you're amazed that an item like this with 20, 21 days left still in the auction is going to at least sell for $420,000. And in my opinion, that number could potentially double by the time this auction ends. So really, this item could hit close to $1 million, if not more, based on this auction estimate right now as it stands. Now, this really piqued my curiosity. So I started messaging a lot of people that I know in the trade who are really active in the video game collecting realm. Not going to drop any names. I started messaging people and I said, who the heck out there is bidding $420,000 on this item at present time when the auction still has 20 to 21 days left in it? Now, this, in my opinion, seemed like a publicity stunt at first. At first, I have to admit that's where my mind was going. Because why would you want to bid this early in the auction that high of an amount? And that tells me that it wasn't just one person. Somebody else had to be bidding up against that person because that's how the price got that high to begin with. Well, my prayers were answered because I got to give it to Kotaku and Chris Kohler. Chris Kohler, who I've never met, but I have a lot of respect for, he's a great journalist in the video game trade. He published an article on Kotaku.com that says the Nintendo PlayStation will sell for over $400,000. Ironically, I don't have a Twitter account. I deleted it back in 2018 because it got too political with Trump and everything else. I didn't want anything to do with it. So at that time, I decided to delete my Twitter account. Well, that may have been a bad idea because apparently the guy who has the high bid on this particular item at present time took to Twitter to admit that he was the high bidder on this item with 20 to 21 days still left in the auction. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The person that's bidding on the item is named Palmer Luckey, or Lucky, I'm sorry, I don't know how he pronounces his last name, and he is the head of VR company Oculus, who is now the founder of a military technology contractor company. Ironically, he stated on Twitter that he wants the PlayStation as part of a quest to digitalize and preserve the history of physical video games. Now, to be fair, I'm not bidding on this item. I said in my original video that I did on this subject matter, this item's not for me. I have no interest in it. I don't want to own it at all. So I'm pleased that if the person who is getting the high bid for this item thus far does want to really preserve the item, and he goes on to say that he plans to preserve the machine in the most advanced video game storage facility ever. Now, I have no idea what the hell that means, but ironically, it just hit me like a ton of bricks as to why this person is going on Twitter and announcing that he currently has the high bid on this particular item when there's, 20, 21 days left in the auction. So that's what's not sitting well with me. I understand that this person obviously wants it, but I also consider him, and I hate to say this, I'm sorry if you're out there watching this video, Palmer, but I consider you an amateur in the antiques and collectibles trade. Because number one, you're bidding such a high amount so early in the auction, and number two, you're announcing the fact that you are pretty much a well-established head and founder of not only the VR company Oculus, but also a military technology contractor. People out there could potentially bid you up, whether they're serious or not about owning this particular item. So that's what's really hard for me to wrap my head around. Because if Palmer Luckey, or Lucky, sorry, I keep pronouncing his name wrong, I don't know how he pronounces it, came to me as a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade, and he said, Sean, I really want to go after this item. What's your advice? I would tell him to keep a low profile and not bid on the damn item until at least the final day of bidding. Bidding it up 20 to 21 days before the end of this auction, and also announcing that you're bidding it up on Twitter is a publicity stunt, in my opinion. So I gotta ask what this person is thinking. Does he want to pay a premium for this item? Does he really want it to become a $500,000 or $1 million plus item in video game collecting lore? Is that the goal here? So that's where I'm a little bit dumbfounded by his actions on this item, because he seems like a very intelligent, established, well-to-do guy. It's just he's taking a course of action that I would never, ever advise a client in the antiques and collectibles trade to take. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this particular video. I would be curious to your thoughts, those of you that are viewing this video, those of you that have an interest in this auction. Please let me know what your comments are in the comment section of this particular video. And I will also link this particular article by Chris Kohler of Kotaku in this video's description so that you guys can just click on it and read the article as you go along. I think these events are very interesting. I think that this auction is very historic at present time because of these developments. I also think, though, that this person, this Palmer Luckey, he is really taking an unprecedented risk by admitting that he is the high bidder on Twitter. Because it's very easy for somebody else to now come in and say, hey, you know, like somebody, I'll just pick a name out there. And again, I have no vetted knowledge that this person would be bidding on this particular item, but let's say Trip Hawkins, who founded Electronic Arts and the 3DO company. Let's say that he has an interest in this item, and he's sitting at his desk and he goes, well, this other guy just bid it $420,000. I'm going to bid him up and I'm going to go and get this item. Now, there's going to be a bidding war between a lot of these well-to-do, established, multi-millionaires operating in this field. So ironically, those of you that are asking what the point is with Wada Games and the whole Super Mario's fiasco, well, it got us here, didn't it, guys? So now I'm going to end the video this way. Market manipulation works. We've pretty much created now a new phenomenon in video game collecting. This is the new future, guys. I don't know whether it's going to last 10 years. I don't know whether it's going to last 20 years. I don't know if the bubble's going to pop within 5 years. But here we are. Video games are now an established collectible. So congratulations, market manipulators. As always, and I've been on your side of the equation as well, you got your wish. Thank you, and have a good night. Curious to know your thoughts.